ॐ विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यः साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बीजस्यान्तरिवाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः मायाकल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्रचित्रीकृतं मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यपि महायोगी वयस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ वर्स नंबर 90। घटावच्छिन्नखे नीरं यत्तत्र प्रतिबिम्बितः साभ्रनक्षत्र आकाशः जलाकाश उदीर्यते। Let's read verse number 20 also. महाकाशस्य मध्ये यत् मेघमण्डलमीक्ष्यते प्रतिबिम्बतया तत्र मेघाकाशो जले स्थितः. So in the first 17 verses of chapter 6, Vidyaranya presented a synopsis of teaching of Vedanta. We call it as a Vedanta Sara, synopsis, summary, essence, with the example of Chitrapata, a painted canvas. Through that example, he first introduced original consciousness, we say just consciousness, and then reflection and samsara. So Adhara Chaitanyam, Abhasa Chaitanyam and samsara. And then he said this samsara is property which belongs to Abhasa Chaitanya. Abhasa Chaitanya is samsari and it is afflicted by samsara, and the consciousness Adhara Chaitanya is asangam, not affected, asamsari. And then he pointed out, well, when we use the word I, then there is a mixture of asamsari Adhara Chaitanya plus samsari Abhasa Chaitanya. It's always a mixture. It's always going to be the mixture. Even after understanding that I am Adhara Chaitanya, it is going to be mixture. Because one is mithya. Mithya being non-separate from Satyam, and mithya being mithya, means which will be experienced even after understanding it is false. And therefore it is going to be there. And therefore this will be always a mixture. Ajnani knows only one thing, that I am Abhasa Chaitanya. Jnani knows that I am Adhara Chaitanya. And but Abhasa Chaitanya will always shine in Jnani and Ajnani both. And that is very clear from the Vyavahara of a Jnani also. But anyway, so there is a mixture of asamsari Adhara Chaitanyam, samsari Abhasa Chaitanyam, and both are intimately mixed up. So ideal condition for the confusion. So in place of one you take it other, because it's a mixture. So only way out is this sorting out. We call discrimination, right? That samsari Adhara Chaitanyam and samsari Abhasa Chaitanyam, we have to sort it out. And the entire Vedanta Shastra helps in this process. And at the end of inquiry, we should have a immediate knowledge or a direct knowledge or a paroksha jnanam that I should claim I am a samsari, and then from which point I will be a samsari. Well, from the beginning, less time, you are a samsari only, because in a mixture you have taken yourself as a samsari. That's the cause of the all misery. And so, and with that samsari, that abhasa chaitanyam comes and goes, right? And therefore still you claim. In fact, it lives behind you. Samsari, that is abhasa chaitanyam, lives behind you. And therefore that is your nature. But still somehow, because of the maya, avidya, well, you take yourself to be samsari. And that is, so basically that's how a person considers himself as a jiva, etc. Actually, I am not affected by that abhasa chaitanyam or samsara of abhasa chaitanyam. This is the aim and topic of Vedanta. And now having presented through this canvas example, Vidyaranya wants to present it in a little bigger screen. And well, we call it as a Vedanta Vistara. So and he introduces that topic, well, in 3 verses, starting from verse number 18 to verse number 21. He introduces this topic. And our analysis is sorting out this reflection and original consciousness, that is basically Adhara Chaitanya. So Chit Chidabhasa Viveka and should be done. So actually words are many, but idea is this, that well, Vidyaranya makes, he is going to make it clear in this Vedanta Vistara. And so it is OC and RC, I mean basically consciousness and reflection, it's a pair. And here, because of it's an expansion, he will show it. See, you can see in the first 17 verses, he talked about Adhara Chaitanya, Abhasa Chaitanya. But then still there is a division in that there are 2 types of Adhara Chaitanya and 2 Abhasa Chaitanya, etc. He did not talk, because he wants to elaborate that. So that will be the topic here now, because it is Vedanta Vistara. And therefore he is going to talk about that there is Abhasa Chaitanya at a micro level, macro level. Adhara Chaitanya at a micro level, etc. And so, basically, so Tatpada Vichara, Tvam Vichara, etc. And Jivatma is a mixture, as I told you, of Abhasa and Adhara Chaitanya. And Paramatma also is a mixture of basically Abhasa Chaitanya, Adhara Chaitanya. And so he is introducing to Abhasa Chaitanya, to Adhara Chaitanya. And at the end, well, what he will do is, he will negate what is Abhasa Chaitanya at micro level and macro level. He will negate it. And therefore Ishvara is negated and then Jiva is negated. What this Vedantins, always negate. Ishvara, he is negating Ishvara. What daring he has got. Yeah, but what is Abhasa? What can I do? If it is Abhasa, I have to negate. When we negate something, if in your mind there is a resistance, means you should know that you consider it as a tangible entity. Then only you feel resistance. If it is abhasa, why you should negate without asking me? But if you are not able to negate even after telling by a teacher, means you consider they are tangible entity. So look at this person. He negates Ishvara. People criticize Vedanta. But Ishvara is just abhasa, and wherever there is abhasa, it is mithya, and there itself Satyam is lying. We are negating mithya in order that to understand that there is Satyam lying there, pay attention to that. That is the reason. When we say snake is mithya, we are not interested in proving something mithya. But there is a reality, there is adhisthana, the adhisthana rajju is there, etc., which is Satyam, has to be known. For that sake, mithya jnanena moksha na bhavati. By mithya jnanam, moksha does not happen. By knowing what is the reality, moksha happens. And therefore, we should be very clear. Whenever you hear about Vedantin, that they are mithyavadi and all that, in your mind you should have a clarity. We are not mithyavadi, we are satyavadi. Because mithya is always non-separate from the satyam. By telling something mithya, which you were earlier considering as a satyam, we are telling it in mithya so that you can negate it and see something which is there, which is satyam, which is non-negatable, etc. And therefore we are doing this thing. Anyway, to Abhasa Chaitanya, micro level and macro level, both will be negated because they are mithya, both are Abhasa. And then Adhara Chaitanya, two Adhara Chaitanya. One Adhara Chaitanya at micro level and another at the macro level. Well, he will merge into two. Because at the consciousness level, there is no macro and micro, right? There is one consciousness which is all pervading. In that, what is micro and what is macro? Micro-macro difference will shows that both are limited. Really, both are limited. And therefore, that kind of division itself is not there. Therefore, even without asking anybody, he is merging that Adhar Chaitanyam at a micro level and macro level, he is merging into one consciousness, which is a reality. And therefore, only verbal difference is there. For the name's sake, there is a difference. And we are going to elaborately understand what it means actually. And so, we'll see that. So, what is left out is only consciousness, Adhar Chaitanya. And this is a general design. This is called Chaturvida Chaitanya Prakriya, or as I told yesterday, Chit Chaturvidya Prakriya. Prakriya means a method. In order to arrive at the non-duality of that consciousness. Consciousness is one alone. For that he divides into four. Starts with the duality and arrives at the non-dual thing. Anyway, and what are the names of this Adhar Chaitanyam at micro, macro, and Abhasa Chaitanyam micro, macro, etc.? Well, the names are very simple. At a micro level, reflected consciousness is Jiva, and at a macro level, that reflected consciousness, Abhasa Chaitanyam, is Ishvara. And Adhar Chaitanyam at a micro level is called Kutasthaha. Adhar Chaitanyam at the macro level is called Brahman. And so, Jivatvam and Ishwaratvam is Mithya. Now, please understand, this is better. This is much better than what I said before. Jiva is Mithya is not correct thing. Because there in Mithya some component is there which is reality, right? On that only that Mithya is shining. Mithya is existing on account of that. And therefore, Jiva is Mithya. That's not a proper statement. Even if I have told you that you reject it. Jivatvam is Mithya. And Ishvara is not Mithya. Ishvaratvam is Mithya. The Sarpatvam of a Rajju is Mithya. Snakeness is Mithya. Snake is not Mithya because you can't dismiss entire snake because there is Adhishthanam there. And therefore snakeness of a rope is Mithya. That's how it is. And therefore same way consciousness, the Jivatvam, individuality of that same consciousness, Brahman, is negated. And Ishvaratvam also is negated. Anyway. So, they both are Mithya. Jivatvam and Ishvaratvam is Mithya. And Tvam, you know very well, it is to make an abstract noun, we make like this. Tvam means ness. That's all. So, Madhuratvam means sweetness. In the ness indicates a abstract noun. Anyway. So, in Kutastha and Brahman is left out. Right? Both Jivatvam and Ishvaratvam is Mithya. Then what is left out is that Satya part, which is Kutastham and Brahman or Adhara Chaitanya at micro-macro level. And this will be understood as a divisionless naturally. And so, divisionless consciousness. And so both are merged. For the namesake they are two, but they are one alone in reality. And so, Nama Veda Natu Vastu Veda. And to simplify this all study of this Chit Chaturvidya Prakriya, he is giving an example of a Akasha here. Earlier in the first 17 verses, which is called Vedanta Sara Synopsis. So there we saw example of a painted canvas. Now he is giving the example of a Akasha. So Chaturvida Akasha, same. Chaturvida Chaitanyam, since Chaturvida, Vida means a fold, fourfold. Fourfold Akasha is, fourfold Chaitanyam, consciousness is equated with fourfold Akasha. So then again, micro-macro. So micro, original space, let's say that, time being. Micro space and then macro space, that is, and micro reflected space and macro reflected space. So, he gives a name also for fourfold Akasha also. Micro space, that is original space, is Ghatakasha. Micro reflected space is Jalakasha. Macro original space or space is Mahakasha. And macro reflected space is Meghakasha. And he is going to explain these four Akashas in the verses which are coming now. So if you equate Akasha and Chaitanyam, then I will just tell you, the Ghatakasha is equal to Kutastha, and then Jalakasha is equal to Jiva, the Mahakasha is equal to Brahman, and Megakasha is equal to Ishvara. So, well, if you can equate these four, then you need not study further or chapter 6, okay? Then you can come directly in chapter 7, if you can do that. So, basically, Ghatakasha is a Kutastha. So, well, Ghatakasha is what? Well, it is nothing but a space enclosed in the pot. We are going to do that, elaborate study of that, but I am telling you. So, this is Ghatakasha, and that is, well, it is at a micro level. And same way Kutastha also, Chaitanyam enclosed here in this Sharira, etc. And Jalakasha is equal to Jiva, Jalavachinna Akasha. So Jalavachinna Akasha is not Jalapratibimba. So Jalapratibimita Akasha anyway is equal to Jiva, compared with the Jiva. Jiva also is nothing but a reflection. Jalakasha also is nothing but a reflection. Akasha reflected in the water, right? It's called Jalakasha. Then same way Chaitanya reflected in the Buddhi or two Shariras is Jiva. So they are equated. And then Mahakasha is Brahman, naturally. And then Megakasha is Ishvara. Well, that is also reflection in a bigger medium, and that is in clouds, etc. We'll see that. So this is how they are equated. And we saw verse number 19, and he introduces two Akasha there, and at a micro level. So first is a Ghatakasha, Ghatavachinna Akasha, I have told you yesterday. See, the Ghatavachinna Akasha, the space enclosed within the pot, will exist whether pot exists or not. Please understand this. Whether pot, even though pot, enclosed space within the pot is independent of the existence of the pot. If pot is there, then also it is there. Pot is not there, then also it will be there. Okay? So well, that is there. And then when you pour water into the pot, well, the upper space which will be reflected in that water. So we call it as a Sabra Nakshatra. Abram means along with the clouds, because sometimes, suppose if it is a night, then definitely some stars will be reflected. Or if it is during the day, sun will be reflected. Some clouds will be there, clouds will be reflected. So Abram means basically this cloud. I will give you that derivation. So Sabra Nakshatra. So it says in verse number 19, Sabra Nakshatra Akasha. So that's an adjective to the Akasha. So Sabra Nakshatra, Sa indicates Saha, along with what? Along with Abram, along with the cloud. The Akasha along with the cloud will get reflected in the water which is there in the pot, which is called Jalakasha. And so within pot now there are two spaces as though. One is a Ghatakasha and second one is a this Jalakasha. So one is a basically original space or the space, and the other one is a reflected space. So when pot gets destroyed, that reflected space, Jalakasha, gets destroyed. Ghatakasha cannot get destroyed, right? Akasha within which is there. See, this Ghatavachinna Akasha that you know very well. Anyway. So that Akasha is enclosed, and now there are two Akasha that is there in the Buddhi, not outside. That there are two Akasha. One is within the pot, another is outside the pot, which is big. So as though Akasha has been divided by the wall of the pot. Nothing is happening. That is there. Whole pot is in the space. And therefore, basically, that Jalakasha, so Ghatakasha and Mahakasha also, you can understand now. Names are different. It's one Akasha alone, right? That's what I was telling. And so, basically, Ghatakasha will be there whether the pot breaks or pot will be there. As the pot is formed, enclosed space is as though formed. Now, where the very formation of the pot is in the space. And therefore, the space cannot be divided at all. Otherwise, I would not buy any flat. I would not buy any apartment because I will buy space. Ultimately, flat means what? Puja Swamiji had narrates very beautifully, right? This wall is a common wall to the neighbor, and that the ceiling is a common to the person who is in the upper floor, and this and etc. etc. All the four walls etc. is so what person lives is not in the wall. So then, well, I require space to live, and therefore I will buy some space. I will go outside, in the countryside, make a slice of the space and bring it. You cannot do just as you do in the case of ice cream. You cannot do here division, and therefore there is no division called Ghatakasha and Mahakasha. Over. It's a namesake. One Akasha, original space has no. The same way original Chaitanyam also, Kutastha and Brahman are just names, etc. We'll see that. So, Abrahi Nakshatraihi Saha Vartate Saha Sabra Nakshatra. So, Sa indicates Saha. And it is Akashasya Visheshanam. So, basically, and the Ghatakasha is not mentioned. But I have told you, Gata Vachinna Akasha, pot, enclosed space within the pot is Ghatakasha. And here he explained Sabra Nakshatra. Abram means basically this, the cloud, which is there along with the space that will be also reflected in that pot, in which there is a water, in fact. So, that is how Jalakasha is been explained. Now, this is Ghatakasha, Jalakasha. So, Jalakasha Udiriyate. See, you can see that Sabra Nakshatra Akasha, Jalakasha Udiriyate. Udiriyate means it is stored. This is called Jalakasha, in which, in the water of the pot. Well, the space along with the stars, sun, clouds, whatever, is reflected. Let's go to the verse number 20. We have read that. So, Mahakashasya madhye yan megha mandalam ikshate pratibimbataya tatra meghakasho jale sthitah. Now he is explaining meghakasha. So, he wants to explain. See, the micro part is over now, right? Ghatakasha and Jalakasha. So, it's space at the micro level and the space, reflected space at the micro level. Both are over. Now, macro part. Space and reflected space. I should use original and reflection, but need not be. Space and reflected space. So, for reflection at the macro level, we require a huge reflecting medium, naturally. So, here the water in the pot, that's a reflecting medium for the space to be reflected. So, here we require a bigger medium. And Vidyaranya ingeniously comes with the possible reflecting medium at the macro level. So, he says this rain-bearing clouds, in a rainy season, not in summer. In summer also sometimes you find clouds. In the United States all the time clouds will be there. So, but all are not rain-bearing clouds. But basically in a rainy season when the clouds have a water. So, water should be there. So, rain-bearing clouds, that's called megha. I will give you that derivation also. So, that becomes a reflecting medium. The rain-bearing clouds become a reflecting medium for the space. And that is a bigger reflecting medium. The space will be reflected there in that macro. And it's reflected in that cloud, which is a macro reflecting medium. And so, he does not mention Mahakasha, as we have to supply. Like that, he doesn't mention about Ghatakasha. He did not explain Ghatakasha. In verse number 19, if you see, only Jalakasha is explained. Ghatakasha is not explained at all. Same way here at a macro level, he does not explain Mahakasha. I need not explain you Mahakasha, right? In Mahakasha, everyone is explained. And therefore, he does not explain Mahakasha. He is going to talk about a reflection at a macro level of that Akasha. And reflection of Akasha at the macro level. So, Mahakashasya madhye, Mahakashasya, in the middle of the Mahakasha, Meghamandalam ikshate, huge, patch of rain-bearing clouds, and that will be there. And that rain-bearing cloud, that huge patch, you will be able to see through satellite pictures, right? So they always show the satellite pictures where the clouds are there, where the rain will be there. So there you will find that a big, covering several states. Sometimes it covers several states, not one or two, Pennsylvania and New Jersey and New York and whatnot. And then, so it's a bigger patch of that clouds, rain-bearing cloud, is called Megha Mandalam. Mandalam means here it is a huge patch of clouds. Megham means a rain-bearing cloud. So, Ikshate is seen by us. So, Megha Mandalam Ikshate means a very huge part or huge patch of the rain-bearing clouds is seen by us. That is a bigger reflecting medium. Tatra means in that rain-bearing cloud, in that in that waters of the cloud, pratibimbataya meghakashah sthitah. Pratibimbataya. Taya, so it indicates it shows a third case. Pratibimbataya, and that third case, there is that trutiya is itham bhute trutiya, in the form of reflection. So in that water of the rain-bearing clouds, which is a very big medium, in that this pratibimbataya meghakasha sthitah. So this meghakasha, there is a meghakasha in form of a reflection at a macro level of the space, that's called meghakasha, will be there in that water of the rain-bearing clouds. So in the form of a reflection, pratibimbataya meghakasha. So meghakasha, which is in the form of a reflection, will be there in that rain-bearing cloud, which is the medium. And which kind of medium? Macro medium. And so meghakasha, what is the vipatti? Megha pratibimba akasha, pratibimbita akasha, meghakasha. Gatakasha, gatavachinna akasha. Jalakasha, jala pratibimbita akasha. Right? Same way, meghakasha, megha pratibimbita akasha. And therefore, these are all madhyam padalopi samasa. Yeah, so madhyam padalopi means that between two words, the third word is also there, which you have to supply. When the two words coalesce together, that third word which was there in between is automatically disappears. Like shaka parthiva. Shaka parthiva. What is this shaka parthiva? Shaka means a vegetable. Parthiva means a Tom, Dick and Harry. And so Shaka Parthiva means what? Shaka Priya Parthiva. Wow. Shaka Priya Parthiva. The Parthiva, this Devadatta, this Tom or Dick or Harry, whatever, likes the vegetable. That person is called Shaka Priya Parthiva. So basically, when you make a samasa, that Priya word will disappear. Shaka Parthiva. What is this Shaka Parthiva? Parthiva means a person, like, with a proper name, Parthiva. And Shaka means a vegetable. What is this? Vegetable and person, you make a samasa? Yeah, but in between there is word. Shaka Priya Parthiva. So this is called Madhyam Padalopi samasa. Madhyam Pada, the word in between, Madhyam, in the middle, will be gone. Same way here, all Gatakasha, Gata Avachinna Akasha. So you supply. When you do a vigraha of a samasa, you make it you add that word which has been elided while making a compound. So Megha Pratibimbita Akasha is Meghakasha. Not Akasha within that cloud. Please understand. Not Megha Sthita Akasha. I can do that way also. Meghakasha means Megha Sthita Akasha. Akasha, the space which is there in the rain-bearing cloud. No, sir. Akasha is already there. We are not interested in that. Megha Pratibimbita Akasha. Akasha which is reflected in the space. That is where we are interested. So not Akasha within the space, within the rain-bearing clouds. Akasha which is reflected, or reflected Akasha in this rain-bearing clouds. So this is how he introduced all the four Akasha. But Vidyaranya accepts a problem of that out of these four Akasha, three are perceptible, right? Three are perceptible. Gatakasha, perceptible. Then Jalakasha, right? Jalakasha, in that water of the pot, the upper space along with the clouds etc. get reflected. That is also perceptible. And then this, Meghakasha, this Mahakasha, that is also perceptible. All the three Akasha are perceptible. What about this Megakasha? If in that water, I mean the rain-bearing clouds, there is a water. In the water, there is a reflection of this the space, which is there, right? Upper space, which will be reflected in that rain-bearing cloud. But who has gone to see that? So that is not perceptible. So Jalakasha is perceptible, Ghatakasha perceptible, Mahakasha perceptible. But what about Megakasha? It is not perceptible. So no, I will go in a flight and see that. Then also you cannot see. So that is to be inferred. That is to be inferred. And so that inference he is doing, because he has to tell, when he says there is a Megakasha, therefore there should be pramana for that. There should be means of knowledge to arrive at the Megakasha, and therefore he gives a pramana, not perception, but anumanam, inference. Also that is there in verse number 21. Megam sharupa mudakam tusharakara samsthitam tatra pratibimboyam niratvadanumiyate. He says rain-bearing cloud should have water. So he is starting that inference. Since it gives rain, because Abram itself indicates, word Abram indicates that there is a water in that clouds. Yeah. Abram means what, you know? Apaha bibharti iti Abram. Apaha. There is a word called apaha in Sanskrit. And it's a plural word. It's a strilinga word. And its meaning is water. It's always plural. You will have a forms only in plural. Not all the three. Not singular and then dual and then plural. No, only plural. Apaha, apaha, etc. etc. Adbihi, adbyaha, adbyaha, apam, apsu. So etc. These are the forms. So this is, vertical column. Vertical column. Last column. That's all. And that is, so Nitya Bahuvachananta, we call in Sanskrit like Nitya Bahuvachananta. By default it is plural and also Strilinga. Anyway, so, and the second case, Apaha. Apaha Bibharti, which holds water, is called Megha. So Abram here, I'm sorry, Abram. And there is another word in Sanskrit for this Abram, Jaladharaha. Jalam dharati iti jaladhara, etc. So jaladhara also is a word. And the other here it says Megha. Megha means rain-bearing cloud. So mih dhatu is there. So Abram and here Megha word has been used. Megakasha, right? So Megha word has been formed from the root mih. Mih root is there, and its meaning is to pour water, to sprinkle. So mehati iti megha. So mehati, which pours water, is called megha. It's rain-bearing cloud. Or the clouds which has a water. But water is not in form of a full-fledged water particles. Otherwise it would have poured because of the weight of that water particle. But before condensation, actually it should have existed in a spray or a minute particle. Because it is floating. You might have seen also. If you go to a nearby to a waterfall, you will find sometimes the very small particles of water. They are floating in there. It will make you wet. If you are nearby, it will make you wet. But in very small particles. So they just float. Means they are not, their size is not big. Otherwise it will just fall down. So such kind of water particles are there in that rain-bearing clouds. Before condensation, it would be there. That is called tusharakara. He says here tusharakara means spray particles. Spray you can say, or particles which are very minute and which will float also. That's how they are there in the Megha also. Anyway, just a minute. So Meghamsha Rupam Udakam, water which remains in the sky in form of particles. Amsha Rupam. Megha Amsha Rupam means it is in form of particles which are floating. That becomes a reflecting surface, being water. Right? So it is water and therefore it will reflect. It's a transparent. So, well, we can infer because we have a one vyapti. See, for inference, you need a vyapti. Whenever there is a smoke, there is a fire. Same way, whenever there is a reflecting surface, or wherever there is a reflecting surface, there will be reflection, right? And that vyapti is there, and therefore, well, reflecting surface is there. Which reflecting surface? Water. Water has a reflecting surface, and therefore there will be reflection. Reflection of what here? I mean, here it is Akasha, and so this is how Mega Akasha has been explained. So tatra, in that reflecting surface, which is consisting of a tusharakara jalam, particles which are very minute or which are floating, and very minute particles of the water, tatra, in that reflecting surface, well, ayam khap pratibimbaha. Kha means Akasha. Ayam khap pratibimbaha means basically reflection of a macro space, right? Macro space. Why macro space? Because cloud is very big, right? The water which is there in the pot is small, so it's a micro medium. This one, clouds with water, is a macro medium. So anumiyate, ayam khap pratibimbaha anumiyate. So basically a reflection of the macro space is inferred in that reflecting tattva, in that reflecting surface of the clouds, which is nothing but the water particles which are consisting of tusharakara jalam. Well, the reflecting space has been inferred. Why? Because niratvat, because there is water. It is water, and therefore this is how Mega Akasha is inferred. You cannot see, you cannot perceive that, unlike our three other spaces. So Mega Jalam Akasha Pratibimba. We can make a inference, a statement. Mega Jalam Akasha Pratibimbavat. So how? Jalatvat. Example, Gata Jalavat. Right? This is Meg Jalam. So basically, the water in the rain-bearing clouds possesses what? Akasha Pratibimbavat, possesses the reflection of a space. How will you prove? Jalatvat, because there is water. Water has a reflecting surface, and that water is there in rain-bearing clouds, and therefore Akasha must be there. But give us one instance where you have seen that there is water and there is reflection. Gata Jalavat. What means an example? Always what comes, you have to understand its illustration. So Gata Jalavat, since we have seen in an instance called Gata Jalam, so in a water of the pot, we have seen the reflection of the upper space, and therefore, well, definitely there is a water there in the rain-bearing cloud also, and there will be reflection of space also, and that reflecting medium is big, so we call it as a macro space. Mega Akasha is a macro reflecting space, okay, and Mahakasha is a macro space, and then Gatakasha is a micro space, and Jalakasha is a micro reflecting space. Clear now? All four are clear. Very good. And with this introductory part of this second topic called Vedanta Vistara, introductory part, verse number 18 to 21 is over. And now a Maha journey starts. First journey was from Ahmedabad to Dubai, 2.5 hours. Then Maha journey, Dubai to JFK. My God, 12 hours. All the time seeing in the screen, still little bit, flight is little bit. When it will be over, big journey. Now that journey is starting, and in this journey I will have to show you how he is going to develop the topic. So what he is going to do is, now of course Chaitanyam etc. will be there. So mixing up of micro and macro he will show. Tvampada and Tatpada. I have already told you that Avasa Chaitanyam and Adhara Chaitanyam is mixed up. And then sorting out. That's a big job. It's a Viveka. I mean, Tvam Tat Pada Viveka here. So here in Tvam also there should be a Viveka, in Tat also there should be a Viveka. So Abhasa Chaitanya, well, of course, I have told you because Abhasa itself indicates that there is Adhishthana, Adhara Chaitanya, and that is at a micro level, and well, Abhasa Chaitanya at the macro level, that also indicates that there is Adhara Chaitanya. So there also Abhasa and Adhara is there, here Abhasa and Adhara is there, here also it is mixing up, here means it is at a micro level, and at a macro level also there is a mixing up. So, well, he will do Tvam Pada Viveka. Kutastha Jiva Viveka. Kutastha Jiva. Jiva means basically this reflection, and Kutastha means Adhara. So, and second one is a Tat Pada Viveka. That is a Brahma Ishvara Viveka. And these two topics, right? Kutastha Jiva Viveka, Adhara Chaitanya, Abhasa Chaitanya Viveka at the micro level, Adhara Chaitanya, Abhasa Chaitanya Viveka at the macro level called Brahma Ishvara Viveka, or in short you can call Tat Pada Viveka. The earlier one was a Tvam Pada Viveka. Now third, by Bhagatyaga Lakshana, in the micro that Abhasa will be negative. In the macro also the Abhasa will be negative. So two portions will be negated by Bhagatyaga Lakshana. Negated is Bhagatyaga, we have to do Tyaga of Abhasa, and therefore a portion of that, because here it's also mixture. Mixture of what? Mixture of Adhara Chaitanya, Abhasa Chaitanya. Here also at the macro level also mixture of Adhara Chaitanya, Abhasa Chaitanya. And therefore, since in the mixture, in a negatable portion is negated by Bhagatyaga Lakshana. And so, naturally at a micro level Jiva will disappear, at a macro level Ishvara will disappear. And what will be left out is here now Tvam Pada Lakshyartha, and that Lakshyartha is a Kutastha. Here also Tat Pada Lakshyartha will be left over, and that is nothing but Brahman. And then he is going to say this, well, Kutastha and Brahman are just two names of a one thing. That's all he is going to do. So that Aikyam and will be revealed. Kutastha Brahma Aikyam will be said by Asi, you can say. So Tat, Tvam and Asi. Now how he is going to do, I will tell you. From verse 22 to verse 103, he will do Kutastha Jiva Viveka. Abhasa Chaitanya, Adhara Chaitanya Viveka at the micro level. Or you can say Tvam Pada Viveka is going to do between verse 22 to verse 103. Then verse 104 to 209 will be Tat Pada Viveka. Or you can say Brahma Ishvara Viveka. Or you can say Adhara Chaitanya, Abhasa Chaitanya Viveka at a macro level. Okay? Then from verse number 210 to verse 246 will be Asipada Artha. So Aikya, Kutastha Brahma Aikya. He says this Kutastha and Brahman are one alone. Only two names are there. Why two names? We'll discuss that thing at that time. So 210 to 246, Kutastha Brahma Aikya. Or Adhara Chaitanya at a micro level, Adhara Chaitanya at a macro level are one thing alone. Only two names are there. That's all. And after 246, whatever the verses are left over in this chapter is nothing but the phalam, the result of this knowledge will be there. So this is how now we are starting the journey. So see number shlok, the verse 22. Let's see that. Adhishthānataya deha dvaya vachinna chetanah kūtavan nirvikārena sthitah kūtastha uchyate. Chetanah adhishthānataya vartate. Chetanah adhishthānataya. So that consciousness, original consciousness, you will understand that consciousness is adhishthanam, which is nothing but a chaitanyam. That consciousness is a adhishthan. Of what? Dehadvaya avachinna chetanah adhishthanataya vartate. So this consciousness basically is supporting dehadvayam, Or so, and what are the Dehadvayam? What are two bodies? Sthula Shariram, Sukshma Shariram. So Dehadvaya Avachinna Chetanaha, that consciousness obtained within these two bodies. Just remember Gata-akasha. The akasha, the space obtained or enclosed within the pot. Same way consciousness obtained within or enclosed within these two bodies. These two bodies are compared with a pot. So this Dehadvaya Avachinna Chetanaha, so consciousness, well, which is enclosed in these two bodies, like the space enclosed in the pot, is Adhisthana Chaitanyam. So Adhishthanataya Vartate means, please understand, Adhishthanataya is the third case, and I have already told you it is Itham Bhute. Itham Bhute, you have to translate in English as in the form of or as. Maya Adhyakshena Prakritihi Suyate Sacharacharam. Maya Adhyakshena Ramena Tritiya. So there also, I am being Adhyaksha of the entire creation, etc., in the form of Adhyaksha. Well, all presiding over. So that is this kind of Tritiyas are there. In Taittiriya also, Brahmana Vipaschiteti, Brahmana. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, Yoveda Nihitam Guhayam Parame Vyomanne. So Oshnude Sarvan Kaman Saha, Brahmana Vipaschita iti, in the form of Brahman. Brahmana Tritiya, in the form of Brahman. This is called Itham Bhute Tritiya. Itham Bhave, Itham Bhute Tritiya. And it's always translation will be in the form of or as. Anyway, so here, so just as the space enclosed within the pot, same way this Chaitanyam, which is nothing but an Adhishthanam or Adhara Chaitanyam, is enclosed within two bodies. He's explained now each. So he starts with a micro, at a micro level. And that this Adhisthana Chaitanya won't undergo any change, whatever be the condition of the body, being Adhisthana. And therefore, when reflecting medium travels, bodies travel, etc., either subtle body travels at the end of the prarabdha or a physical body right now travels along with the subtle body. Whenever reflecting medium travels, reflection travels, but Adhisthana Chaitanyam or Adhara Chaitanyam, well, or the consciousness at the micro level does not travel. Whatever happens to the body, well, definitely happens to the Chidabhasa, but does not happen to the Adhisthana, Adhara Chaitanya. So, and if reflecting medium gets destroyed, well, definitely Chidabhasa also gets destroyed, but definitely this Adhara Chaitanya will not destroy. Reflection is subject to change, and well, this original, that consciousness does not change. That's what he says in the second line. Well, Kutavat Nirvikarena Sthitah. Nirvikarena Sthitah. It remains changeless. Whatever happens to the body, whatever happens to the spot, whatever happens to the pot will not happen to the space enclosed within the pot. Nothing happens to that. Even pot gets destroyed also, well, space does not get destroyed. But of course, the space which is reflected in the water, and if water, the reflecting medium, gets destroyed, dried up, reflected space also will be dried up. Please understand. I am comparing simultaneously, so you will understand. So the space enclosed within the pot, nothing happens to that. But the space which is reflected in the water of the pot will be destroyed. Will happen. The change will happen. That will be there. Suppose that water becomes, polluted or something. Or dust, etc. will be there. Then the space also looks dull there. But definitely the space the reflected space looks dull. But the space which is enclosed in the spot, nothing happens to that. Because there are two spaces, right? Two spaces. Ghatakasha and Jalakasha. Everything happens to Jalakasha. Nothing happens to Ghatakasha. Even the destruction of the pot does not bring a destruction of the space enclosed in the pot. Because to begin with, there are not two spaces, right? Ghatakasha is nothing but a Mahakasha, and therefore nothing is going to happen to it. But everything happens to the reflected space. That's what samsara is. So all happens to abhasa. Nothing happens to adhara. All the time sakshi. Anyway, so it remains changeless. Whatever happens to body, nothing. But how will you say? No, you have a lot of daring to talk. No, I am talking from Bhagavad Gita. Na jayate mriyate va kadachit. Or Kathopanishad. Na jayate mriyate va kutaschit. Right? So, well, ajo nitya shashvatoyam puranaha. Ajaha nitya shashvataha puranaha. Pura eva navaha iti puranaha. Pura eva navaha. Navaha means which is new. Pura eva navaha, which is new, fresh, from the beginning, less time. Nothing will be new. Everything will be new when it is born. After a few years, it will start shrinking. Right? Even if it is a body, it is a mind, anything. Anyway, so all this indicates nothing happens to Adhara Chaitanya. That's very clear. Avyaktoyam, achintyoyam, avikaryoyam uchyate. Avikarya, which does not undergo any kind of a vikara, change. It's a changeless consciousness. And all the verses from verse number 12 to verse number 25 in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita indicates the nature of Atma being changeless. And that is Adhara Chaitanya. Which Adhara Chaitanya? Available at a micro level. Don't go to Brahman right now. Don't go. Tvam pada viveka we are doing, right? And so, and Kutastha word also he has used, and here also he is using Kutavat nirvikarena sthitaha. Kutastha. Kutavat sthitaha. Kutastha. So, it is Kutavat. Kutavat means again example. Vat means example. So this Adhara Chaitanyam at the micro level, which we call Kutastha, because it is Kutavat, it is like a Kuta. But what is that Kuta? Kuta has a two meaning. One meaning which Bhashyakara has given in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, because there the Kutastha word is coming. And there Bhashyakara has defined Kuta means which is kept in a huge mass. Somebody says it is like a parvata, like a mountain. But generally it is considered as a huge mass of something. Huge mass of grain, huge mass of stones, huge mass of chairs, huge mass of food. Yeah, huge mass of food. That is how we call Annakuta. You might have heard of this word, Annakuta. It's a very big festival here. All are waiting for that, because we generally go to have a darshanam of Annam rather than that Lord to whom everything has been offered. I was always going for to see that part which is there. They used to keep in Diwali. They have an Annakuta. They give as a Naivedyam offer to the Ishvara. I mean any deity. And then nobody looks at Ishvara. Everybody looks at what are the items they have kept. A huge. And in fact, sometimes Annakuta means a huge mass of rice, cooked rice. In one of the temple near Ahmedabad, around 60-70 kilometers, Krishna temple, very beautiful temple, very popular also. There they keep in Holi, I think. In Holi, they keep a huge mass of that rice. And you have to literally loot it. Everyone, and naturally, everyone considers himself or herself very, very fortunate person if he gets a little bit of that rice, because that has been offered already to Ishvara. A huge, and they just open the door and everyone will rush to that kuta. Very nice it is. So Annakuta, a huge mask of something. And when it is in heap, naturally it is too heavy, so you can't move it. So anytime when they use word Kutastha, they also use word Achala. Kutastham, Achalam, Dhruvam, you might have heard of this all. So Achalam, na chalati, it cannot be moved because it is a huge mass. Not mosque, mass. And therefore, so basically huge mass of something, and therefore Kutastha is Achalaha also. This is a meaning Bhashyakara gave in Bhagavad Gita chapter 12 while describing the word Kutastha of the verse. Other acharyas gave a alternative meaning. Other meaning is there. Kutaha means an anvil used by blacksmith, and and on which you keep any iron item, and then you take a hammer and you basically strike to that, and so iron rod or anything can change. Generally they keep rod, so to make it flat, etc. And so that hammer also basically undergoes a change, in form of up and down, and that rod on which they are striking, that also will undergo a change. Well, but that anvil, which is a support of that iron rod, does not undergo any change. And that's how. So Kuta means that anvil which does not undergo any change. I will give you another example. Like when these women make a chapati, so then they have three things which undergo change. One is that rod, wooden rod by which they make. That also is moving, right? So it is undergoing a change. And then there is a dough which naturally undergoes a change. And the movement of that person also will be changing. But the adhara on which they are making chapati will not undergo any change. And so, same way, Brahman is like this, on which you make a chapati, is like that. And all other things, all the shariras, all the bodies are like dough. They undergo change all the time, right? The shape also is changing, and the prarabdha is that rod. But prarabdha brings that change. And so prarabdha is a rod. All the bodies are like a dough, which shape will change. And Brahman is like the adhara on which you are making that chapati. But who is doing that? Ishvara alone is doing. Ishvara alone is doing. Like here, there the woman is doing. Same way Ishvara is doing that. And so Ishvara is a karma phaladata, and therefore he is doing it. And everyday experiences, knocking experiences, all and macro changes are happening. All possible changes are happening to the bodies, etc. Both the bodies, to the mind also, to our gross body also. So all changes are possible because of what? You are able to make that chapati because of what? Ultimately that rock bottom. So that kind of a thing is there. So anyway, and so in the chapati case, we can say it is kutastha, which does not undergo any change. In case of dosa, it will be asanga chaitanya. In case of chapati, it will be kutastha chaitanya. In case of dosa, it will be asanga chaitanya. And you do, it's a non-stick pan. That's a Brahman. Okay. So this kitchen is full of Vedanta. Very good. So shabash. Very good. Verse number 23. Kutasthe kalpita buddhihi tatrachit pratibimbakah prananam dharana jivah samsarena sayujyate. So now he has defined Kutastha Chaitanya in verse 22, Adhara Chaitanya at a micro level, etc. Whatever happens to the body, etc., nothing happens to the Adhara Chaitanya. What happens to the Abhasa Chaitanya ultimately? But anyway, now he is defining that Abhasa Chaitanya, so called Jiva. So in verse number 23, first verse number 22, Adhara Chaitanya at a micro level. Now Abhasa Chaitanya at micro level, called Jiva. So Kutasthe, upon this Kutastha Chaitanya, what is Adharam? Which is Adharam? What is created? Well, Buddhi Kalpitaha. Well, at the time of creation, Buddhi is created. So here it says Buddhi, means you have to understand. Sthula Shariram and Sukshma Shariram are created at the time of creation, Srishti. By whom? Naturally, by Bhagavan. In keeping with what? In keeping with the karmas of a jiva. And within this two shariram, basically, buddhi is most important. And that's how they say buddhi kalpitaha. So buddhi is created. And this kalpita word is used for creation purposely. Kalpita word is used because in Vedanta word kalpita is reserved for mithya thing. Any mithya thing we say kalpita. And therefore since the srishti is we want to indicate that srishti is mithya. And therefore whenever they talk about srishti they use word kalpana, kalpitaha, etc. And so, for that purpose you can refer to our Advait Prakaranam of a Mandukya Karika. Very clearly the Srishti has been shown as a Kalpana. Kalpana of Ishvara basically. Our dream creation is a Kalpana of a Jiva. And so this Vyavarik Jagat is a Kalpana of Ishvara. And therefore, and why this buddhi has been narrated here like this? Because it's made up of ultimately, Antakaranam is made up of Sukshma Bhutam. Entire Sukshma Shariram is made up of Sukshma Bhutam. So, and since elements are subtle, they are very fine matter, very fine medium for reflection. So Sukshma Sharira includes the buddhi, it has got a fine texture and so capable of forming reflection. So, like if this page is there, I don't see my face, on this page of the book. But if it is a laminated, I can see the face. So that's how it's a reflecting surface. It's a fine medium, fine texture is there, and therefore it's a reflection can occur. That's how buddhi kalpitaha. Kutasthe, upon this Kutastha Chaitanya, which is Adhara Chaitanya at a macro level, this Buddhi, Sukshma Sharira and also Sthula Sharira are created. So Tatra means this Buddhau, there is the formation of a Chaitanya Pratibimba, and so we ourselves are basically small. Why we call it this micro level, reflection is at micro level, because the body itself is very limited. In that one portion is a head. In that there is a buddhi, etc. So the medium is very, very small, and therefore the reflection also will be small. So we say micro medium or micro reflection. So pratibimba, and how he narrates that it is a small pratibimba, being a reflecting medium is small, buddhi is small, limited. How he narrates, instead of using a word pratibimba for reflection, he says pratibimba-kaha. You see there, pratibimba-kaha. So, chit pratibimba-kaha, kutasthe kalpita buddhihi, tatra, in that buddhi, in that medium, chit pratibimba-kaha. And kaha indicates kutsitarthe kaha, we use that like that. Kutsita, which is alpam. So, like balakaha, right, balakaha. So, that kaha indicates which is very small. Sometimes kutsita means something which is which we don't like. Sometimes the kaha pratyaya also is used for the kutsita. Kutsita means actually which is to be censured, like that kind of a thing. But here it is alpam, small. So chit pratibimba kaha. So the pratibimba, the reflection of the Chaitanya will be formed in the buddhi, which itself is very small, and that chit pratibimba or that pratibimba Chaitanya, reflected consciousness at a micro level, is called jiva. So now he's saying is that prananam dharana jiva. So jiva word, you can take it like that. And why it is called jiva? Why you have brought that? Why don't you say it is reflected consciousness? Why you have coined a new word, jiva? Because there is a reason. Jiva dhatu is there. Jiva prana dharane means that which holds prana. And this reflected consciousness which is formed in the buddhi, in this body, which holds the prana within the body. And therefore we call it as a jiva. Because jiva dhatu has the meaning prana dharane, to hold the breath. So pratibimba Chaitanya, which holds this pancha prana within the body, and so if it chooses to leave, it won't hold prana, but it carries pancha prana along with it, and it holds prana also within the body. How many pranas? Pancha prana. Prana, pana, vyana, udana, samana, all are held here by that Chidabhasa. Once the Chidabhasa's prarabdha is over, right? Jiva's prarabdha is over, he lives with the prana from the body. And that has been very clearly told by Bhagavan also, that Chidabhasa carries prana, away from the body. Mamaivamsho jivaloke jivabhuta sanatanaha, etc., etc. Manashashthani indriyani prakritisthani karshati, etc. Bhagavan told in chapter 50. So the jiva who takes this prana along with, and indriyas also, entire subtle body. So Chidabhasa carries prana away from the body. As long as prarabdha is there, prana is kept and in the body. So Chidabhasa, I think somebody told that Chidabhasa is like a nut and bolt, So basically pranas are held here by the jiva. So prana dharana jiva, he says. Prana dharana jiva. Samsarena cha yujyate. And well, that jiva is samsari. Well, that we have to see tomorrow. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.